Hi, my name is Claude Sharati. Thank you for tuning in. Today I have with me a prominent member of the African communities in Victoria. He's been around for over 20 years and has been involved in a lot of programs and activities relating to African communities. So I'm going to talk to him today to discuss issues, challenges, and opportunities relating to African communities in Victoria and beyond. Haileluel, thank you very much for joining us. How is ATT going?
ATT is going now with new leadership, and we have done a strategic work, and now we need to implement what we have done when it comes to our strategies. Almost, half of the previous board members gone, and we have got new board members and very fresh, and we are looking forward to achieve the best outcome for the community.
Haileluel, let me ask you, as a prominent member of the community and leader of an important organization about African communities in Victoria, what do you think are the challenges that African communities are facing right now?
I think there are many challenges and opportunities for the African communities, and I can see a significant change over the years, the last 20 years, if you like. Many of those are very positive, and the community is flourishing, the community is getting into business, getting into jobs, and in many areas, whether small or big, involved in sporting activities. Some of them are reaching even the highest level. But at the same time, also there are challenges facing particularly with young people. Community need to work more on the integration side of it, not only just the African communities, but also the broader Australian communities, because integration is not a one-way process. Integration is a two-way process, and the African communities need to work, and the broader community also to come down. So that's how we need to work to achieve best outcomes. But overall, what I see is, I think it's not like doom and gloom. What I see is blossoming. It's beautiful. It's things are progressing.
Haileluel, I understand that you run a leadership program at ATT. Tell us a little bit more about that program.
The leadership program, as you know, I got involved in the drafting and implementing this program, and this program has been there the last 7 years. Graduated over 140. African community leaders, men, women, young and old. So it's absolutely fantastic. And many of those graduates actually going and establishing several organizations and involved in boards and committees and serving their own communities. And it's absolutely fantastic achievement. And to continue, this program will continue for this year as well.
Haileluel, I often hear from the community, you hear good things about ATT and you hear some criticism, and that's all part of the picture. Amongst the criticism is that African think tank doesn't do much. There's a lot of stuff in the media, but not much in practical terms. So can you tell us what is one of the biggest achievements of ATT?
One of the biggest achievements I can say is just, the last 7 years is building the capacity of the African communities. To build a community, you need to provide training and support to community leaders and their associations. So that's exactly what we did and implemented and achieved the best for the community.
Okay, let's talk more broadly now. Multiculturalism, from an African perspective, do you think it's working?
In African perspective, I think multiculturalism is a good policy in a broad sense. But I think I would say we need to go one step further. We need to look at interculturalism. How are we going to talk about interculturalism versus multiculturalism? To me, multiculturalism is a collection of culture, but interculturalism is more integration. So, as you know, I did a Churchill Fellowship in integration, so I'm much more interested about integration. So I think that's something we need to look at it.
Haileluel, let me ask you about service providers. These are organizations that are paid to provide services to the communities. From where you're standing, do you think they're doing a good job in terms of meeting the needs of African communities?
I think, I believe that always there is a service gap between when they're delivering their services. I think it's up to the funding bodies need to look at and monitoring how they achieve and what are the requirements and the criteria to demonstrate their achievements. So I think the ongoing evaluation is very important.
Haileluel, at the moment there is an issue with African youth. What do you think needs to be done to address that?
I think I believe they need to look at particularly with the young people. I think that's very critical. Why these young people are not schooled or not employment area, or sometimes some people are asking a question like why young people are just out there at the middle of the night, or if you like the 14 years old boy is found somewhere involved in antisocial kind of activities, and how that happened. So that's very critical to ask that kind of question. I think probably we need to look at also the circumstances under which those young people probably migrated to Australia, and what are the special needs for those young people. For example, if that boy is a minor, unaccompanied minor, migrated by himself, or what sort of experiences, pre-migration experiences that boy or girl has. So what sort of services required to support those young people to move to the next level of their life. So I think that's very critical.
Now, do you think that Australians have a good understanding of African communities?
Many people assume that everything just coming from Africa is like as if coming from one culture, from one country, from one region. But Africa is heavily diverse. Even one country probably speaks over 100 languages. Maybe there are over 100 ethnic groups. There are multi-religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, practices, and also some communities are Anglophone, others are Francophone, others are Arabic. There are indigenous culture, languages. So Africa is like any other continent, highly diverse. So we need to understand we can't put everyone in one box.
And when you say not to put everyone in the same box, in practical terms, what does that mean?
We need to look at what are the circumstances, the background, the educational background, and what sort of support needs that particular community. So we need to do all this kind of background work before delivering any type of services. So I think I do understand there will be gaps, but need to be looked at closely.
Haileluel, the Victorian Government recently announced some significant funding to be provided to African communities. I think they promised about $1 million over 4 years. That has not happened for quite a long time. What do you think about that?
I think one thing I learned when I went to the Churchill Fellowship in Canada, they provided specific support for those communities. I think that used to happen here in Australia as well under the name of Grant in Aid. That's the support levels provided to the Greek, the Italians, and the previous, migrant communities. But that already stopped when the Africans start arriving in this country. So what does that mean is you are not really providing the community associations or organization to stabilize that community. So I think that created a huge gap. So I think it's very, very important, to provide that kind of support for the grassroots communities so that it can stabilize the community and support the community, therefore the community be able to help itself or its members. So that's very critical support, and I absolutely commend that kind of action taken by the Victorian Government, which is a good example for other states as well.
Do you think the federal government should follow suit?
Absolutely. I absolutely believe in this, and I always advocate. I think it's critical. I mean, why the same community, the same organization, the same people who migrated here, migrated to other places like in Canada, achieve better than here? I mean, that's a question. The question is because they get a good support. I mean, I put in my Churchill report, I compared two communities from the same country, from the same refugee camps. One arrived here, the other one arrived in Canada and established the same community, the same association at the same time. So during my visits, the association in Canada, managing 32 full-time and part-time workers, managing over 3 million budget. The one here in Victoria, actually, even they don't have their own offices, let alone just managing any kind of programs like for the elderly, English language, and providing domestic violence and other kind of services. So it's really absolutely important. The one over there is providing resources to their own communities. The one over here are struggling because they don't have that kind of establishment. So it's very critical, and I believe in that. And the Commonwealth government also need to look at that approach as well.
And what areas do you think this funding should be directed to in particular?
Grassroots communities. I think it is very, very important. Leadership doesn't mean, working with leaders. It is working with grassroots communities. Most of us now involved at grassroots level, whether it's a local clubs, social clubs, or association, or churches, you name it. So we are working through that kind of network, communicating with thousands of people on weekly basis. So I think that's very critical to look at how to reach to the community, what the community needs, and how not only just reaching the community, but how do we respond to their specific needs, whether it's settlement, whether integration.
Now, let me ask you this. It looks to me that there is no solid, respected, and fully representative peak body for African communities as yet. Why do you think that is the case?
What we need to look at the moment is, yes, collaboration across many communities and associations is very critical, important, and essential. However, I think we need to look at, for example, now we are looking at the South Sudanese community. Okay, even within the South Sudanese community, there are many communities as well, the same as Ethiopians or Eritreans, Congolese, Nigerians, and many others. For instance, some communities probably migrated here under a skilled category. Okay, probably they don't need about settlement or resettlement kind of activities. So I think it's very, very important to look at, each African community's basis instead of really collectively as an African body. I think that's my personal view as well.
Okay, well, Haileluel, I want to say thank you very much for your time to African Media Australia. Thank you for putting a bit more light into some of the issues relating to African communities. We hope to have more opportunities to talk to you in the future about these communities and the broader Australian society.
Thank you very much.
Well, folks, that's it for today. We hope you'll continue to join us here at African Media Australia as we discuss issues, opportunities, and challenges relating to African communities. Until next time, God bless you.